Hi, you're watching Chelsea and Tony live, and today we're trying something different. We're going to be joining you for the live premiere. So this video was recorded, but for the live premiere, we'll be joining you in the comments and taking your questions, so you can still ask those and we'll be there. If you'd like to submit a photo for next week, the theme will be your pets. So go to sdp.io/submit and submit your pet pictures.
Thanks for joining us. We missed y'all. We know a lot of y'all are stuck at home, so we just wanted to check in and hang out with you guys for a little bit.
Yeah.
Look at some pictures.
I know.
This is the first one from Tom Flink, Glacier Lake in Iceland. Tom did a pretty good job of including something in the foreground. I think there were probably some adjustments in post to bring out the contrast in the sky.
It's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him a pick. Good
I
job.
think you could even just make the overall picture a little more blue, but that's just a matter of taste, Tom.
Another landscape.
Whoa.
This is an incredible sky.
Stuart, this picture is amazing. Beautiful, dramatic, great composition. I love the foreground of the grasses moving. The light is gorgeous. 5 stars in a pic. It's an amazing photo.
The people, do they help or do they hurt this picture?
I think people could help this photo, but I think that there are so many of them bunched together that it would serve your photo better to just have a few with subject separation in the shot.
That can be tough. This is clearly a tourist attraction. The way you do that is you wait a really long time, or you can take multiple shots and stitch them out.
Or you can do a long exposure and put it on a tripod and
Yeah.
just wait for people to move. Rodolfo, I love the colors in this photo. That rich green background, it looks like maybe you even enhanced that color. It goes really well with the golden tones of her skin. And she's posing her hands really nicely. I wish she would just like glance up.
The hand is cut off in an awkward place, and then we have this in the upper right corner, and we have the stick coming out of her head. This is a quick clone job. I would remove that stick, I would remove that. Just for the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna crop it a little bit differently.
Oh, he's cropping.
Another thing that bothered me was the distance from her watch here, which is a key element. Like, my eye went there almost like it was a watch ad.
Yeah.
And the distance between that and the bottom of the frame is too small. And it was greater than the distance between the top of her head and the top of the frame.
Yeah, but I'm really impressed about this photo because her hands are so delicately posed and her expression is so nice. And that's usually where a lot of people have trouble with portraits. I think that's the hardest part. So these little tiny details, this will be no problem for you to learn. Thomas, look at this little pigeon. Well, you got an interesting pose. I think maybe putting him in black and white and making this a really dramatic pigeon, I think that could work for you.
Thomas, with bird photography, eye contact is really key. Birds can be okay in a perfect profile or with their nose tilted towards you a little bit, but what you don't want to do is to have them looking away. And you cannot pose them, but you can wait. They turn their head constantly. Now, this is some eye contact.
A juvenile black-crowned night heron. George, whoa.
That's incredible. I'm going to give you a pic right away.
It almost registers as a snake with its big long neck craning around like that. And then you've got the beak just straight on, so it looks so small.
I feel like it could be a little contrast here. Looking at the histogram, you can see there's no real black point, there's no real white point. And I think I would just bump that up a little bit and then look at the side by side. You can see.
I like this photo, but it's also very weird. It's so straight on and its neck is in such a different position. Mark.
I think this is spot color. How do you feel about that?
Look, I personally am not a fan of spot color. And I think it can be done well, but I don't think that it should be the thing that defines the focus of your composition, because it can be lazy. I don't think you did that here. I don't think you used spot color as a crutch. I think you used it more to just paint little points of interest.
I'm glad to see Mark starting down the path of doing long exposures and doing night photography and doing light trails. The next step for you is going to be to keep going out and shooting, and to think, when you see a car going down the road, you know it's going to create a light trail. So think of that as a compositional element. This is going to become a powerful line in the frame, and you want to make sure that that line that you cannot see with your eyes is going to be attractive. And here we have a line that's almost horizontal, but not quite. Try to position yourself in such a place that those lines are going to create nice, smooth, flowing arcs that improve the composition of the photo.
I think that cropping the photo and simplifying the composition, I think it works out a little bit better here, because I like these points of light from those big stadium lights.
Tim, oh my goodness, Tim. Right away I have to fix the histogram. See how this whole right third of the histogram is completely empty? Let's raise that white point and just look at how much of a difference that makes, especially with a dark subject like that. Maybe I even want to boost the shadows so we can see a little more texture. If we look at the before and after, like what an easy change, right? That's a beautiful shot with the berries. I'm going to give this one a pick.
I'm going to argue with Tony. I would just bring down the whites a little bit because I think it got a little bit harsh and maybe a slight warming. He looks so shy and sweet. Bryant Richards Jr. So we have, this is 1/50th of a second. f2.8 ISO 400. What are you working with here? You've got the Canon EOS R with the 70-200. Am I seeing like camera shake or motion blur, or is it misfocus? Is the focus on her ear?
It does look like it might have back focused a little bit. The shutter speed is also really too slow for a portrait, especially with a sharp lens like that. You'd probably want to be more like 1/125th, and yeah, that's going to force you to drive up your ISO.
I do think what you did right. I really like the interesting background. The location is really cool. She's in the water. You'll want to be careful, like she's got a lot of makeup under her eyes, which makes it look sad. Like, makes me think of her crying. You could just have her clean up the makeup that ended up under her eyes, and she's got some lipstick on her nose. You might be able to clean that up in post. The other recommendation that I would make is we've got this really disembodied head look going on. You could change that by just showing either a little bit of shoulder or by having her do something with her arm, and then you're showing a little more of her body, and then it's not this like cut off head effect.
I like the direction of this. Definitely keep working with this.
Yeah, that's cool.
Seems like you found a good model. Panorama shots like this are really tough to share online because nobody is looking at a super wide horizontal screen, right? And as a result, whenever we see this online, we see this very tiny version of it, and that really steals the wow factor here. I would try to take multiple aspect ratios. I would try to find a composition where it works really well, cropped to square or 8:10 or even vertical. I also think we're a little too close to the bottom of that boat. I would like to see a little bit more room below it. The whole shot is overexposed because it looks to me like the detail should be in that sunset, and we've lost a bunch of that detail. I'm confident you saw more colors with your eyes, right?
I like a lot about this. I love that you picked this beautiful sunset. You picked the perfect time. Technically, the photo looks great. My little editing tip would just to be, if you look, all of the buildings have a blue cast to them and they're a little bit underexposed. If you go into the blue color channel and pull up the luminance, then you can get some of that shine back in the buildings. And then they're the subject of your photo, really.
You're at 1/400th and ISO 400, but these are still subjects. You could shoot this at ISO 100 and 1/100th of a second, and that would give you much more dynamic range to work with, and that's something you really need in this photo. Bracketing.
Really good photo. I love the colors, and I like the composition a lot.
Don't take massive amounts of feedback as something negative. This is us just saying, okay, you have a good photo, here's how you get it to the next level.
The better the photo is, the more feedback we want to give.
Yeah.
Don't want people to take it the wrong way.
Nobody's going to get a photo where we're just like, okay, you're perfect, you're done, you graduate photography. As before,
Okay.
I wish the bird would just turn its head a little bit. Waiting is the right thing to do, or sometimes you can make a little noise like...
Can I hear that again, please? First of all, I really like your composition. I like the little bird looking there. I like the bench that you included. It gives some texture. You have a dark background, so your subject is popping. I might even crop in a little bit, but I wanted to address your settings because you have a bird that's still. Your shutter speed is really fast. And then in order to let more light in, you pushed your ISO up to 2000.
So we have the rule of doubles. Look that up on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I would start shooting this at 1/500th of a second, and I would take a few shots, and then I would drop to 1/250th, 1/125th, and I promise you, even at 600 millimeters with a stabilized lens, you could have gotten a sharp shot at 1/125th, and that would have produced a much cleaner image. Cleaner and sharper.
I can't do that because I'm not as steady-handed as Tony. I think like 1/500th of a second, I could probably do that. And then you could get your ISO lower and you'd have a way cleaner photo.
But that's the nice thing about the rule of doubles. You start at 1/500th and work your way down, and then you just sort through the pictures backwards and find the sharpest one.
Yeah, I still do that, but I always find my shutter speed, it has to be way faster than yours. I don't know what your deal is, honestly.
My heart doesn't pump.
You're
Completely still.
But your heart rate also is way lower than mine.
Yeah, I do have a very low heart rate.
Because you know how your watch keeps track? It's just like, I don't really know what's up with you over there.
Another Canon EOS R photo from Benedict here. I think this is a fantastic location for a portrait shoot.
Yeah, you would need some fill light. It's very cool. I like the colors. I like your composition. I can just see there being a model on the stairs or something.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But we're saying it needs a focal point.
This is nice, a genuine expression. I feel like this is a genuine moment. Very cool.
Yeah, that was a good shot. This is a gorgeous fireworks picture.
Yeah.
I want to crop it. It's just, it feels a little imbalanced to me because everything over to the right side of the frame wasn't adding anything. I would call this street photography. Somebody's traveling home, apparently, but it's not, it's an interesting moment, but it's not especially engaging. He's looking at something, but I don't know what. The people just seem bored in the photo.
Well, this is a picture where I think, I don't know what's going on. This picture alone could be great in a photo series. Let's say you had these same people and you had a series, a dozen photos where you were showing us a story. Then this photo on its own really works, but I don't know where they are or what they're doing or what their story is, but it's a nice photo still.
And we're at ISO 36,000. This must have been a really dark environment. We definitely could have shot this at 1/250th.
Yeah, so we do have a book, it's called Stunning Digital Photography, and we go over all of this stuff, how to get your exposure so that you're getting the most light possible while also getting the most out of your photo, a really clean image. D. Miller sent us a picture of a bridge. Oh, I see you've got like the reflections in there, so you got some symmetry going on, you've got the sunset. So a lot of the time you shoot a sunset and then you look at your picture and you're like, what? It wasn't like that in person. In person, it was like really bright. And then you look at your picture and it just looks dull. It doesn't look the same. And so a lot of the time people will put their exposure down and then all the colors get muddy. My advice to you would just be expose it properly and make it nice and bright looking and it will look better. And I think Tony did some of that.
I raised the white point to brighten it up, and then I also reduced the vibrance a little bit because I felt like it got a little oversaturated. And compositionally, I've struggled with this because you wanted to make a symmetrical composition because you had the reflections in the water.
Yeah.
But at first glance, as an outside viewer, the symmetrical reflections are not obvious to me. And as a result, I don't take those in and the picture seems extremely unbalanced because I'm only looking at the top half of the photo. It does work better in black and white because the reflections are more obvious there.
If you want it to be mostly about the reflections, black and white's going to do that. I would even bump the contrast a little more.
Where I was going is I would have tilted the camera up and just ignored the reflections and worked on the lines of the bridge and the sky, or go back when the water is very still and we can get those reflections more prominent.
I kind of want to turn this photo sideways. How do I do that without messing everything up?
I only know how to do it from the grid view. There's these little guys.
Same.
You want it like that?
No, that looks terrible. I made a bad suggestion and I own that. I own that.
A lot of photo editing is just playing around.
It's experimental. Play, have a good time. Alessandro, this is crazy. There's a person there. Is this a golf course?
That seems like a really challenging hole.
But look at the grass. It looks perfectly mowed.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be
What is happening?
a farm of some kind. I'm adjusting the white points here just because I want
Of course.
some more contrast. I also feel like I need to see a little more of the grass. So maybe what I'll do is do this
Really
and then just recover the highlights a little
confused.
bit so I don't blow out the sky too much. Let's see if that is a little better. I just wanted to add a little bit more pop to it. And I do think that person is such an interesting focal point here that I'd like to see this printed large. I'm going to give this a pick. It's a fantastic shot, Alessandro. I also think the highlights here were a little bit overexposed. There's something about sunrises and sunsets where you lose so much of the color unless the picture, the highlights are a little bit underexposed. And it feels like those colors got overly compressed too much.
But I like the little framing with the tree and the bench looking off. It's like, it's really cute.
Be a good spot to hang out and wait for somebody to come and sit on the bench.
Ooh, I like that they found beauty in something simple. Nice Christian. Some street photography. I like that you have the big sign, Kun Nam Wa Bridal, in the background. It tells me a little bit about where you are.
I'm going to give this a pick. I really like it. You went out on a rainy day and you get those reflections on the roads, which I just think are gorgeous. And you waited for somebody to come through. So there's movement. There's a little bit of a story to it. It's beautiful.
Speaking of stories, I have some news stories for people.
Okay. Let's take a look.
And everyone seems inundated with news, so I wanted to do good news, Tony. Our first story is about a man that befriended crows. This guy, Stuart Dahlquist, he noticed there were some crows in his yard. The babies fell out of the nest, and so he did the right thing. He picked them up and he put them back in the nest, and he put food and water at the bottom of the tree for them. He developed a relationship with these crows, with this particular family of crows, and one day he found that they left him a little gift. It was these little pine twigs with pull tabs threaded onto them. They basically did little crow arts and crafts. Can you believe that? They're
That's
so
really
smart. I love crows. He also said they'll follow along when I take my walks, landing on the wires along the way. The adult male is very amiable and will fly sometimes within a few feet, swooping by to say, "Here I am." I thought that was so cute.
Yeah. If they were smart, maybe they bring him a 6-pack or something. Who really wants twigs with
That was from goodnewsnetwork.org. And
That sounds like a good place to hang out. I'm going to replace all my news feed with the goodnewsnetwork.org.
And then another story from goodnewsnetwork.org is that blue whales are returning to Antarctica. So this is great news for you wildlife photographers. You might have a little trip in store for you in the distant future. The photo here is by Michael L. Baird. They did like 60 years of whaling and they wiped out the population pretty much. And so they had to put a ban on it, and they'd been tracking the population of the whales. In 2018, they only recorded 1 sighting of the whales. And this year they had 36 sightings and 55 individuals. So they're coming back in a big way. The population is healthy and doing well.
You know what else is recovering? The gray wolves in North America. When the early settlers came, they were eating all their cattle, so the new Americans just killed all the gray wolves. But they've made a significant comeback in the last few years. There are like solid populations now, and it makes me really happy. Let's take a look at some more pictures. Mitchell Torgman.
Whoa, really nice. You froze the movement and you have a flower there. I just wish the lattice wasn't in the background.
Speaking of stunning digital photography, the wildlife chapter has a whole section on setting up what I call a bird studio, where you basically put a place where you're going to photograph birds with a pleasant background and a way for you to get close to them. Now, you got very close. This is the equivalent 600 millimeters, but hummingbirds are so small. And 1/2000th of a second. This is just a fantastic image. Just, make a nicer background. A little bit further from the subject.
Can you make a bird studio for me that would enable me to become friends with crows?
You really like crows?
I just want to, I tried to talk to them once, but...
Okay, this is not ideal when you're racing. Usually
this is like
you want your tires to be in contact with the road, but it made for a really cool shot. I'm going to give you a pick. This is like one of those moments that you definitely wait for. I agree with sort of upping the contrast and maybe even lowering the black point a little bit. Wow.
Whoa, Jay, I really love your photo. It's so simple.
You get a pick for this too.
But you still, compositionally, it's still beautiful. I'm giving you a pick as well. 2 picks.
This is a very pretty shot. I will say anytime I include the sun in the frame in a landscape shot, I'm probably at least going to take a shot at f/22 so I can get that starburst effect, whatever your highest f-stop number is on your lens. I think the biggest challenge you have here is that the rocks here have the exact same brightness and texture as the trees. So the rocks do form a nice little line, but they almost disappear. Maybe you could just dodge and burn these rocks to create more visual separation. Wayne Sturrett. This is a great composition, classic rule of thirds.
400 millimeters, 1/400th, f/5.6, ISO 400, shooting with a Sony A7R Mark III.
Yeah, I think the settings and everything are perfect.
He must have been far away.
Now that you've got a good bear shot, the next level up for you is to get the shot of the bear with food or with cubs or in beautiful lighting. So wildlife photography is a constant competition against yourself where you're trying to outdo yourself. Now you got to level 3. Let's get you to level 4. Just gotta put the time in.
You're gonna get him to level 4?
Yeah.
This is some plain stuff. You're about that, Tony.
Yeah.
One could say this is a plain photo.
This is perfect timing. I'm gonna give you a pick, and everything is lined up perfectly. You were probably shooting at 10 frames a second, which is what the A7 Mark III does. And those planes are moving so fast that over every 10th of a second, they're covering a lot of distance. So this was lucky. I mean, you were in the right place, you had the shutter down, but to get it timed this perfectly, fantastic. Perfect. Yeah, you nailed it.
Wow, this is beautiful lighting.
Yeah, it really is. It's a low contrast shot, but I think that really works here and works to convey the beauty of it. I would take out the green wristband that he has because I find it a little bit distracting.
Kids are like that.
This kid is dressed very photogenically. He doesn't have any big logos or bright colors. His outfit is actually good. I would just take out that green wristband and maybe that red strap on his collar.
This is really beautiful. I like how you use the movement of water to kind of paint a picture.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, very unique, and I like it a lot.
Give me that one a pick. Whoa.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to give this one a pick right away. This is definitely a good choice for the A9 with its 20 frames per second. I feel like it caught focus on the wing in the front, which is kind of unavoidable. Like, you've done everything right. It's just the camera can't necessarily distinguish that from this. That's, I hope in the future generation of cameras, they have proper bird eye detect that will actually be able to separate those out and help us nail those shots. Perfect though, you get a pick. I just wish the composition was shifted to the right a little bit, because we have this powerful line of the Aurora Borealis, but it starts in the middle and then goes to the right, and it makes everything feel a little imbalanced to me.
Yeah, but it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's
still
gorgeous.
Very
Great
good.
choice of foreground.
This one is nice. It's a little overexposed. You can see it's blown out, but that can be so hard to deal with, especially when your foreground has really dark elements. I might just bring down the blacks a little bit too. Maybe just go into black and white, since you're losing the colors a lot, just because it was blown out, and you can see your yellows look kind of like green and a little bit muddy. So you can either warm them up, or you can just go to black and white if you don't want to deal with all that.
Chelsea, I know what you do anytime you're photographing the sunset. You've done this from your very first camera. You put the camera into bracketing mode.
Yeah.
And you're always plus or minus 2 stops.
Yeah.
And that would have saved you, Joe. Because sometimes you can't think of every little thing. So you bracket, and then you know you have the proper exposure, and this shot came out overexposed.
Yeah.
I also would have shot this definitely at ISO 100 and 1/100th of a second. You just would have gotten a cleaner image with greater dynamic range, which again would have helped you recover.
But your composition's really beautiful with this leading line in the foreground. It looks good. Whoa, This one's different. Totally black and white silhouettes of these. I'm gonna call it a sheepy ram.
You got all the bases covered.
Nice, I like it. Very interesting, simple. I'd like to see a series. A lot of pictures are like simple but nice. Maybe I'd add a little more contrast, and I think that they would work well with other photos.
Yeah, that would be good art in your home.
Really beautiful color contrast, Marcus. You have this beautiful rusty orange vessel with a bright blue sky, and it just pops. Really good color theory use. Whoa, gorgeous lighting. I love the sheen on her skin. It's so beautiful. It draws attention to the lines on her legs and her arms, and I love the soft fabric, a really classic background. What a beautiful photo. You get a pick.
This makes me mad. What feedback am I going to give about this? I don't even want to crop it. It's just like a perfect shot.
It is beautiful.
I guess you did it, Stephen. I'll be thinking about this, and I'll figure out something negative to say later.
We'll critique you. I think this is a very cute, something ethereal, small world vibe about this photo, and I wouldn't be afraid to add to that feeling with the processing. So you could just kind of warm it up if you wanted to, and make it look a little bit more fun and whimsical.
I might even do a little vignetting.
Oh.
Darken the corners a little bit.
Well, you're a bad person. Let's call this our last one. Go for it, Tony. Take it away.
I want you to somehow climb down the hill and position yourself lower so that this lighthouse breaks the horizon. It would just add so much depth, because right now we just have 2 even lines, and crossing them over would make it so much more powerful. But I think it's an amazing shot.
It is beautiful. I'm giving it a pick. Thank you, all of you. I know it's different this time. We're going to try to go live again next week, and the theme will be your pet photos. So hang around the house, look for good light, different times of day, look near windows, think about engaging your pet. You could make it like a formal portrait of your pet. You could put a funny hat on them. I definitely wouldn't object to that. You could befriend a crow. Any of those things I support.
Send your pictures in at sdp.io/submit anytime, and we'll take a look at them soon. Thanks and bye.